and just sort of see the recording. So good evening, everybody, and welcome to our webinar. We are in VIP presence today, I feel. We've got Annette here and Eamon, who are going to be talking through information about apprenticeships, but also what it's like to do an apprenticeship. So hence why the title today is The Day in the Life of a Young Carer, an apprenticeship young carer. I don't know, next slide, please. Thanks very much. So just a little bit of admin for yourselves throughout this webinar. Your mics and cameras will be off. So if you do want to ask a question, please put it in the Q&A section at the bottom or through the chat. And then we can obviously just sort of liaise with Eamon and Annette directly. The session will be no longer than an hour, but if it does overrun, then we'll obviously let you know. You might hear some sensitive information throughout this session. Apologies if you do. I'm so sorry about that. But you know, if anything does occur and you're not okay with it, then just let us know about that. Okay.
Awesome, thanks, Gabby. Yes, as Gabby said, we are joined by some very VIP guests tonight. So Annette from Carers Trust and Eamon, who is a young care apprentice. So Annette, I'm going to hand over to you first. Thank you so much for being here this evening.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me. I'm not able to share my screen. If you could please help me with that. In the meantime, I'll introduce myself. My name is Annette, and I am currently the Young Carers Futures Program Manager. So if you haven't heard about the Young Carers Futures Program, it's all about supporting young carers and young adult carers at critical transition points. So a lot of the support that we do is centered around employability and employment support. And yeah, something that I'm really passionate about, and apprenticeships as well is one of those topics. I'm really pleased to be able to share about this today. So what I'm going to be doing is just to give you an overview of, okay. Sorry, my computer is freezing. Sorry, everything is just frozen. Give me one second. Okay, how do I stop sharing at least? No, everything's frozen.
Oh no, it's always the technical stuff, isn't it, with the Zoom? It's always.
Hopefully in a few seconds. I can't even like stop.
If I share my screen again, it might. There.
Okay.
Yay.
Okay, good. Oh, is it? You can see it now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Let me go back, and it might help to actually close some stuff because I've got a lot of stuff open. Okay, cool. Right, so what are apprenticeships? An apprenticeship is basically a program where you're working and studying at the same time. So you'll be employed full-time in a job and you'll be studying part-time. So the way that it's split is that 80% of your time is spent working and 20% of your time is spent studying. How that looks will vary from employer to employer, from training provider to training provider, and I'll get onto that in a minute. But yeah, sometimes it means you'll be doing 4 days a week working, and 1 day a week is like a study day or off the job training. In other cases, it might be that they do it in block releases. So maybe you could be working for several weeks, and then there's a couple of weeks set aside for you to do off the job training and studying. So because you're employed full-time in an apprenticeship, you do get a salary. So you get paid a salary. You'll know how much it is. It really, again, it varies from employer to employer. Obviously, there are some companies that have a much bigger budget than others, and some industries that tend to pay more than others. And I'm going to show you some examples of some vacancies in a moment, so you'll kind of get to see what that looks like. But in general, the salaries tend to be quite decent. I think a lot of people do have this misconception about apprenticeships, that they're really low, underpaid. And whilst there definitely are, some apprenticeships that are, below like the living wage and things like that. But it's just the same as the job market. There are a lot of jobs out there that pay below the living wage, London, or living wage in your area. And it doesn't necessarily mean that that's how all apprenticeships are. So yeah, it really varies how much you get paid. The time that it takes, so it typically is anywhere between 1 to 4 years, sometimes more, but it just depends really on the level. So for the more intermediate and advanced level apprenticeships, and we'll get into those different levels in a moment, those tend to be between like 1 to 2 years, maybe up to 3. And then your higher and degree apprenticeships is when you can go up to like 6 years. And I mentioned degree apprenticeships, so the levels go from intermediate to degree. And I'll go into a bit more detail in the next slide. And it's important to remember that apprenticeships are real jobs. So it's not something where you'll be, just working as an assistant, unless that is the role you've been hired to do. You won't be working as a personal assistant. If you have been accepted onto a digital marketing apprenticeship, you will be doing the role of a digital marketer. If you've been hired onto a IT technician apprenticeship, you'll be working as an IT technician. So it is a real job with real responsibilities, and you definitely have to prepare yourself for that. I think if you're someone who's looking for that kind of challenge to really push yourself, then don't think that apprenticeships is not going to give you that. It most certainly will. And it's not the easy option as well. There does tend to be this common misconception that apprenticeships perhaps is what you do, and it is a very kind of age-old misconception. Things have changed massively now. So yeah, sometimes people used to always think that apprenticeships is what you do if you are not as academic, or if all else fails in school, then you kind of go on to do an apprenticeship in a trade or something like that. And whilst you absolutely can do that, that is there as an option, but they are becoming, or have become, increasingly competitive. Not only that, there's such a wide range of professions and different types of roles that you can go into, and different levels, that it really means that whatever it is that you want to do in life, you can absolutely do it through an apprenticeship. This is one of the equally viable routes that you can take, if not more, but that's kind of up for discussion. We'll see as we go along, and I'll obviously leave that for you to decide. But the most important thing for you to remember is that whatever route you decide to take, because I know you guys have been having sessions on different kind of post-18 routes and post-18 options, and it's important that you make the decision for yourself, but it's also important that you make an informed decision. So don't make a decision based on assumptions or based on what you've heard from loads of people. It's great to get the opinions of people, but not everyone knows what they're talking about. So it's important to make sure that you are getting the right information and your decisions are informed based on what's actually going on. And do prepare yourself. Like, for example, there are a lot of people who are caught off guard because they assume that apprenticeships are going to be kind of a walk in the park. But actually they get onto it and realize it takes a lot of work, a lot of dedication. And, you know, think about it, you're actually trying to manage, you're not kind of saving studying until they are. Yes, it's spread out over a longer period of time to make it more manageable, but you are still studying and working at the same time. And when you're working, you're also going to have work tasks and projects and things like that. And I say that not to scare you, but just so that you can definitely just kind of make sure that you are prepared and you know what it is you're going into. I'm sure Eamon will be able to give you a much more realistic perspective on what that's really like. So in terms of the levels, as I said, it goes from intermediate to advanced. So an intermediate apprenticeship would get you a level 2 qualification. And that is equivalent to 5 GCSEs at pass level. Then an advanced apprenticeship would get you a level 3 qualification, which would be your A-level equivalent, so equivalent to 2 A-levels, or a level 3 diploma, or the IB qualification. And then you've got your higher apprenticeships. So those are a level 4 or 5. So usually a level 4 would be a higher national certificate. Level 5 would be either a higher national diploma or a foundation degree. And then you go on to your degree apprenticeships, which would be your bachelor's or master's degree. Now, something that happens often is that people look at this, or like parents, for example, who are used to seeing very specific types of qualifications, might look at this and think, well, I don't know what a level 4 is, or I don't know what a higher national certificate is. You might even look at this and think, I've never heard of a higher national diploma. Doesn't sound legit. I'm not going to do it. But actually, just because it's not something you're used to doesn't mean that it's not legitimate. You have to remember that when you look at these vacancies and you look at these companies, these are companies that ultimately you would want to work for or get a job working in these industries or within these companies once you've, you know, let's say gone to university or gotten whatever qualification, and these same companies are telling you to do this qualification. You know, this is exactly what they're looking for. It's very easy to say, well, I want to work in marketing, so I'm going to go to university and do a marketing degree because that's what we're used to. But actually find out from the employers, what is the specific. There are sometimes you don't need to spend 3 years studying a degree when you can actually spend 15 months doing a specific qualification that will get you on the right track in the area or profession that you want to go into. If any other questions come up on levels, because there's a lot kind of to talk about, then just put them in the Q&A. I'm sure we'll get to it later. Another misconception around apprenticeships is that there's not that much you can do. Again, a lot of people in past times always viewed apprenticeships as something you do if you want to work in a particular trade, like construction or beauty. And again, whilst all of those things you can still do through an apprenticeship, there is so much more that you can do. So these are just some examples of some of the different things you can do within business management, project management, HR, loads of stuff in health as well, nursing, midwifery, dentist, vet. You can become a vet. You can actually now, they've actually now got a medicine degree apprenticeship program, which they've started. So the options really are endless. Even within law, you could become a paralegal, a solicitor, loads of stuff in digital and IT. There are things in media and arts as well. Having said that, of course, as it is, you know, in the job market in general, you do tend to see a disparity in how many roles or opportunities are available in some sectors compared to others. So for example, you will often see a lot of opportunities within kind of digital and IT, or kind of general business administration roles. But when it comes to things like media and arts, there tends to not be as many opportunities. But it's not to say that they don't exist and they're not there. They're not there. There are journalism apprenticeships, for example. BBC actually do journalism apprenticeships, and press association or something like that. But you do have to kind of wait out for them. But another thing I would say is to make sure that you are broadening your horizons as much as possible. Don't expect to go for your or land your dream job in the first opportunity that you go for. You might think, okay, well, this is the thing that I really want to do, or this is what I want to do in fashion, or whatever the case might be. But it's really good to try and break that down. Okay, if I want to become this, what are the different elements that make up that role? And what are some of the other things I could potentially do that would help me get to that place? So if you wanted to go into graphic design, or if you wanted to do something on that side of things, have a look at, if you go online, have a look at the job vacancies for those roles, and have a look at some of the things they ask for. They might ask for you to have qualifications, a project management qualification, for example, in some roles, and you've just missed out on doing a project management degree apprenticeship because actually that's not been the end goal for you. So make sure you're really trying to think about these things. It's very nuanced, and it's often not going to be a linear process. You'll kind of have to take all sorts of side steps. These are some examples of different employers that offer apprenticeship opportunities. There's so much more than that, but these are just some examples of some of the kind of brand big names that you'll recognize. But also, and whilst it's good to kind of go for the, go to where the money is, although some of them can be quite stingy, but go to where the money is. But at the same time, don't ignore what your kind of smaller to medium local companies are offering as well. This is one of the things that you want to think about, that you want to consider when considering your options within apprenticeships or jobs in general. There are pros and cons to working with a big kind of multinational employer or massive company compared to working with a smaller to medium local company. They each have their own pros and cons. So just take your time to do some research about those things and what would suit you best. Also remember that there are loads of different departments, different opportunities, and different specialties within any given organization. Again, a lot of people tend to think in a very linear way and think, well, I want to do something, to do with legal services. So I'm going to look at what law firms are offering. But then you remember that there are big corporations that have their own legal services departments. Or say you want to work in marketing, you don't only limit yourself to marketing agencies. If you want to work in finance, you don't have to limit yourself to finance companies and the Canary Wharf big boys and the banks and all that stuff. You can, you could work within the finance department of Starbucks or Coca-Cola, or within the government, for example. So just make sure, again, you're thinking about that when exploring your options. So how are apprenticeships actually delivered? So as I said, it's 20% off the job training and 80% on the job training. And I mentioned, that it can look different. There are actually some companies like Amazon, for example, who, I don't know if they still do this, but I know that this is what they were doing for their degree apprenticeships. They actually take their students to a campus off-site, and they get most of their studying done in the first year, and kind of gives them that university experience. and then it helps them to be able to focus a bit more on the job training for the last couple of years, and also a bit of studying as well. You also will find that on there you've got workplace learning, online learning, attending a college or training provider or university, classroom learning. But nowadays it tends to be a hybrid of a combination of one or two or three of these things. So it tends to not only be, workplace learning. There are some companies that actually have, because they have such large cohorts of apprentices, they actually have tutors who come into the company and who deliver their kind of lessons there. You've got online learning as well, which tends to be incorporated into a lot of courses anyways, but there are some that are purely online. And that's, again, something you want to think about if you do really need that flexibility as far as not having to physically go into a classroom and things like that. Then there are a lot of places that deliver online, but also think about if you're someone who perhaps don't engage or connect as much with online learning, then you don't want to commit to doing like 18-month or 3-year, 4-year degree that is just online if you know that it's literally gonna drive you crazy. So just make sure that you're really, really thinking about that. There was another thing I wanted to mention, but it slipped my mind, so I'll move on. So looking specifically at higher and degree apprenticeships, how does it compare to going to university full-time? I now recognize that says full-time instead of full-time. So sorry about that typo, but it's meant to say full-time. So yeah, how does that compare to doing a degree apprenticeship where you would be studying part-time? So yeah, the way that your learning is different. As I just explained in the previous slide, it usually has a different kind of learning style or delivery, although sometimes it is still very traditional. There are some apprenticeships where the degree is very much being purely delivered by a university within a classroom, and you have to physically go in for those classes, but you'll be doing it part-time. Of course, the main difference is that you'll be getting paid a salary. You won't have any student debt whatsoever because your tuition is fully funded by the employer and or the government. So you wouldn't have to get out any student loans, not for tuition or for maintenance as well, because you're getting a salary, which is so much more than what you would get on for maintenance loan or even with grants and stuff like that. And that's another thing to remember, because sometimes people look at when they're looking at their options and then they see an apprenticeship that's only paying something that's really low, like £12,000 or 10, some even go all the way down to 9, which, yeah, it's not great. And you definitely have to kind of do the maths and figure out what is feasible for you. But also, if you're weighing up full-time university and doing a degree apprenticeship or an apprenticeship, that £12,000 is like way more than what you would be getting, which is normally a standard of like £3,000 for a year as a maintenance loan. I don't know if it's changed since I've been to uni, but that's what it was like for me. And that didn't even cover my rent. Like, I remember I had to actually change my room. The room that they put me in was like in an ensuite room that was always available. And I was like posting on Facebook groups, like, someone in one of the cheapest rooms, please swap with me, because my maintenance loan couldn't even cover my rent. So if I could actually do an apprenticeship where even if I was getting paid £9,000, but I was studying as well, and like, I would take it, because yeah, it's still, the cost still outweighs, the benefit still outweighs the cost. You still get NUS discounts, so you can still benefit from that. And of course, one of the main differences is it usually will take longer. Sometimes you'll find that there are degree apprenticeships that are kind of done in 3 years, but sometimes you'll see they can go to 4, 5, 6 years. 6 years sounds scary, but the ones that are usually like 6 years long are usually the ones that combine undergraduate with the master's degree. So for example, if you wanted to become a solicitor, you need to have your law degree and then your solicitor qualification, which is the master's level qualification. So the solicitor degree apprenticeship is like one kind of package, and you're basically doing 2 degrees, which is why it takes long. And then you have got some other kind of bachelor's degrees level apprenticeships that are about 4-5 years. Yes, it's a long time, but again, remember that is not just time lost. You're not just spending 4 years doing nothing, or you're not just spending 4 years only studying compared to 3 years. You're going to finish with a degree, and you're going to finish with 4-5 years worth of industry experience. You know, you would have actually been trained, you would have worked in different departments and all of that stuff. So it kind of really does put you ahead of the game. It almost sounds too good to be true, like, but I think this is why so many people are starting to wake up to the real value of apprenticeships, and they are becoming more and more competitive. So these are some examples of some intermediate and advanced vacancies. So I tried to kind of like mix it up with some different areas. And just some different professions. I don't know what, you know, you guys might be interested in, but there are some interesting niches out there. Like there was one, like a horse grooming apprenticeship, which I couldn't fit all of them on here. But yeah, there were a few horse grooming like vacancies, I think mainly in like Swindon. I don't know if you guys have a thing for horses there, but a lot of there were a lot of vacancies for that in that area. So you've got chef, sports assistant, car parts apprentice, assistant accountant, digital marketing, IT technical support, rail engineering technician. Again, I want you to think and look at these roles and think about, okay, what are some of the things I would have considered doing or going into after I've finished university. Some people aren't sure, and they're like, you know, I don't know, I just want to be successful in business. Again, break it down. What are some of these roles within business? Digital marketing, accounting. Don't be afraid to test the waters and take different routes. So you can see there in the second column what the qualification is, how long it would take you to complete, and what the annual salary is. This is some examples of some higher and degree apprenticeships. Again, those are different things, project management. This one was really interesting. It was like nuclear. I don't know if anyone, I personally wouldn't want to work with like nuclear weapons and things like that and explosives, but some people might find that interesting. Working for the Ministry of Defense, cybersecurity apprentice with Amazon, business sales executive. Again, you might think, I haven't really thought of myself doing sales, but that's a business management degree that can open so many different doors and opportunities for you. Economics analyst, solicitor, so many different things that you can do. And yeah, if you look at the salaries, you can see a bit of a difference. For example, the economics role, Amazon, obviously, big shot, big money. Of course, they're going to pay more compared to some of the others. It's important that you do your math. And I personally, I'm not of the mind that you shouldn't take an opportunity for money. Money shouldn't be the only thing, but bills need to be paid. And, you know, a lot of people have responsibilities. A lot of you probably have responsibilities at this moment. And so if that needs to be a part of your decision-making process, where it's like, actually, I don't have the privilege to only think about what I'm passionate about. I also need to think about, I have this cost, I have this responsibility, and that needs to go into my weighing up. Then don't feel bad about that being part of your decision-making process. It's completely feasible and viable, and I would encourage you to do that as well. If it is going to be financially like devastating for you to try and just like go to university, not have a secure job full time, and but there's an option for you to actually do it in a way where you don't have to acquire debt and you get paid, you have a secure job at the same time. I would definitely encourage you to think about that. Where to find apprenticeships? The gov.uk website is a really, really good place to start. Rate My Apprenticeships is also good. You can also find degree apprenticeships on UCAS. Not Going to Uni as well is a really good website, and there's loads more. Also, if there are any particular companies you're interested in working for, have a look on their website. Companies like BBC don't really advertise externally, for example. So make sure you have a look on some of these companies' websites to find those hidden opportunities. Social media, family or friends, you never know who knows of the right opportunity that they could, send your way. And that's always one of the best ways to kind of get your foot in the door. If there's someone there who can really vouch for you, that is how I've gotten a lot of, my opportunities. Someone has told me about a job and I'm like, oh my gosh, this sounds amazing. So definitely speak about what it is you're interested in. And lastly, just some things to consider as you're thinking about your options and as a young carer as well. Do have a look at the employer organization. One of the things I always do is I go on glass ceilings to have a look at what past employees and current employees are saying about that company. And it's really important that you do your research and find out, is this really a company that I would feel safe working for? So I mentioned finance already. It is important that you take that into consideration if you have financial responsibilities. Another thing to think about as well is like not just is this opportunity going to help me to kind of like bring more income in, but I know some people will have questions or things to consider around like, how would this affect my benefits and how would this affect what I'm able to have access to? So make sure you're thinking about that and weighing those things in as well. Distance, do you want to be far from home or do you want to be close to home? Again, you want to have a look at that. If it's something that is going to require you to be in person, but you need to stay close to home, then you need to make sure you're finding out that information, asking those questions. Or if it's a case where it's like, actually, I need to get away from home, I need to go to a new city, get my own space, then don't limit yourself to just doing like a virtual remote course where you might have to, still be limited in that space. Also, don't be afraid to go for your passion and your goals. Like, don't be afraid to really take this time to step out and just do something for yourself. It's not wrong to put yourself first. And if this is your opportunity to just be like, you know what, this is what I really want to do. This is my window. This is my chance to just go for it. By all means, please do it. It is really, really important that you do what you're passionate about and what really makes you happy. It will bring the best out of you and it will benefit everyone in the long run, even if it causes like inconvenience in the immediate. And then also think about talking about your caring role as well. If you're still a young carer, maybe you're used to not speaking about it, but this is the time when you want to start to open up and be transparent with your employers, because for the most part, people are not able to provide the right support because they just have no clue and they've never dealt with someone who's a young carer before and they don't know how to. And, do start to think about how you can talk about being carer and how you can open up the opportunity for more support to be provided for you. So that is all. Sorry, I went over time. And yeah, if there's any other things I didn't cover, just we can ask it in the Q&A.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Annette. That was really, really helpful. And just having that breakdown and that overview is just so useful. So thank you so much. Thank you. So Annette has very handily led into thinking about being a young carer and applying for apprenticeship. And we have another VIP speaker tonight, Eamon, who is a young carer doing an apprenticeship. So thank you so much, Eamon, for joining us as well this evening. Would you mind, Eamon, introducing a little bit about yourself and what you're studying and your journey into your apprenticeship?
Yeah, of course, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. So just a bit about myself. So yeah, as you mentioned, my name's Eamon. I'm currently at the end, actually, it's my last month for my level 3 apprenticeship in data technician. So it essentially just involves project management, data analytics, and just like Excel formulas and formatting skills, to name a few. And where I'm currently studying is at UCL. So the employer is UCL, so it's University College London, and the training provider is Multiverse. And essentially Multiverse, they specialize in technical qualification skills, like Annette mentioned, in terms of having lots of cyber data consulting, data technician, then you've got data analytics, which is level 4. So they range from level 3 to level 7 actually, which they've just added. And essentially within my week, it's normally 80% working, 20% off the job training, which is, I split it into, actually can split it to however you feel. It doesn't have to be like a block day. I do actually Thursday and Friday mornings, actually I find it more helpful to split it up just to remember, and just to actually, because I notice when you have more time in your hands, you're less productive. So if you have that split time, then you can, I feel like you can do more with your time. And actually going back, I would have actually done it I think 2 hours every day, Monday to Thursday or Tuesday to Friday. Just obviously, it depends on the employment, is flexible when it comes to it. And in terms of the application, in terms of when I actually applied for the role, I remember I went on to Multiverse and I did the whole prerequisites in terms of all the information, the right to work in the UK, and then I was free to apply for jobs. And actually, while I was applying for jobs, it's actually quite good, because as a young carer, I don't have much free time. And essentially within the time I just had to fill in the application once, and KPMG or Deloitte or JP Morgan, you have to do the whole process again and again and again. But for this one, all the information is stored, so all you have to do is apply for one role, put one reason why I want to apply for this role is, and just detail your reasons below. And once that's done, then you can just apply for as many as you feel fit, or as many as you see suitable, without doing the whole date of birth and right to work. And just tell me a bit about yourself, because we will find that annoying just to explain again and again and again. And in terms of how my week layout looks like, in terms of, it's Monday to Friday, and I work from home. I work from home on Thursdays and Fridays now. So within that week, I just work normally, and if I actually need to do any more of my apprenticeship tasks, my employment is quite flexible. They don't always stick to the 80-20%. You can do more if you find time. And I feel like time management is great for young carers in terms of the prioritization that we have in terms of managing various responsibilities and various responsibilities, various tasks, and actually taking lead and actually being accountable and trustworthy. I think that's lots of people think, well, young care, how am I going to get experience, or how would I find a talent, or how do I sell myself to the employer? But you have lots of, it's not about the skills you have, it's about the way you actually format and actually the way you word your skills. So for example, you could say that I have tremendous time management, and I have high capability in terms of my overseeing various projects or various tasks at once, and you can use that in your CV and employment prospect, which is really important. And in terms of the future, what the future holds, that hopefully next month I'm starting my permanent role after my apprenticeship, and actually my goal was actually just to get my foot through the door and do a level 3, and hopefully I'll be able to do like a level 5 HR apprenticeship in the future, this year or next year, and I can lead on to a level 7 master's degree in HR. So that's a quite great progression pathway. And you don't always have to do a level 6 to do a level 7. You can do a level 5, which is a foundation degree, which is equivalent to the second year of uni. Because as I'm aware of it, level 4 is the first year of uni, then level 5 second, level 6 third year, and then level 7 is the postgrad. So basically, yeah. So it's quite good. I feel I really enjoyed my role, and if any tips I would advise give to anyone, just go for it. Just put yourself out there, and remember, basically feel that you're valued because you're worth something. You're not, because you're a young carer, you don't deserve this opportunity. You, more than anyone, deserves this opportunity, and you should show that to the employer and be confident in what you have, and be confident with your skill set, because at the end of the day, they're choosing the story behind the person, not just the person, and just not about the skill set. They're choosing the individual behind the CV.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Amy. That was really, really helpful. And you're totally right that like you have lots and lots of skills to bring to that apprenticeship role. And did you mention on your application that you were a young carer, or did you mention, like, did you have an job interview before you got your apprenticeship, or like did it come up before you started your role?
I mean, I mentioned that in the past I used to previously care for individual, because what I found, unfortunately, is when you mention, like, I think that's the reason why in life, in terms of my other interviews before Multiverse, I used to mention I was a young carer, and I think employers kind of shy away from that, to be honest with you, because they feel like somebody has other commitments, can't be as committed to the job. But I'd feel that you'd be confident what you have, especially now, that new legislation going through and new government legislation and acts. But I feel that you mentioned that you care for a family member, but don't you say and previously I cared for a family member, so you're keeping it open. You're saying it previously, but it's still ongoing. Just be clever with your wording and just mention family member. Don't say parent, dad, or mom, because that's your immediate family. So just say time to time offer assistance for a family member in terms of their day, in terms of whenever they need any assistance, I'm there to help. Just say something like that.
Fab. Thank you. And yeah, you're right. You don't have to go into details at that point, do you? And you can keep it vague
Yeah.
and make it work to your advantage as well, which is brilliant. So with your apprenticeship payment, it sounded like you applied, you'd done a couple, like you've applied to a couple, and then you decided to apply directly with Multiverse, so the training provider rather than the employer. Is that right?
Yeah. And the training provider, they offer a portal, and through there, then you can apply for jobs which they're offering the qualification for. And it's ongoing, it's throughout the whole year, not at fixed times like BBC or Amazon. I'm quite familiar with Inet, did a great job in explaining all the information. They always have like September onboardings or April onboardings, for example, but it's quite good. This is ongoing, like a normal job will be advertised. It's the same for this.
Brilliant, thank you. And what kind of things do you do in your job? Like what's expected of you within your role?
Yeah, actually, like you actually get a lot of responsibility and lots of delegation to yourself, and you're expected eventually to take the lead on various stuff. For example, I'm doing a data management right now, data project at work in terms of using Microsoft Excel and Microsoft Forms and anchoring it together and getting the information and just basically just just extracting the information onto Excel folder. I think that's one thing I'm doing great with, and also I think that just like to say in terms of I'm seen as a valuable part of the team. Nobody sees me as an apprentice; they see me as a capable, like-minded individual who wants to go above and beyond and wants to really establish himself as a young man within the workplace, as a young carer, and someone who is not really shy away from any responsibility. And actually, in life, you have to take on responsibility because in all honesty, if you didn't have to do something, you wouldn't bother learning it, because you're forced to learn it. I think that's really benefits you in the long run. You might struggle at the beginning, but everybody is born an expert after all.
Brilliant, thanks, Eamon. And I have another question, but I just want to say, if anybody else listening has questions, please do pop them in the chat. How did you find that transition, kind of going from like school, college, sixth form, like into the world of work? Was that did it feel like quite a big jump? Was it scary? Did it take a bit of time?
Yeah, I mean, I found it a bit, not struggle at the beginning, just because always with transition is a bit difficult, and like just getting used to like the whole working environment in terms of. But I thought as a young carer, you actually mature quite early, which really to your advantage. You're actually more responsible and like-minded, like other colleagues. You're more like you're really like serious and not like immature. Just you understand what's happening, what's going on, what's required of you. And also in terms of, I had a job before in Amazon. I was a customer advisor, and then the new shops which they closed down, but it was quite good. I think I did that just to get in, so I can, because it was the first job was the most difficult. But after the first job, then I wanted to actually do their friendship with Amazon, because I thought I'd get in internally and go that way. But I was only on a contract, and then there wasn't any like business needs. But I see that throughout that process, I actually developed as an individual, and I actually exposed me to the reality of work, because I did volunteering, but volunteering is not the same as paid employment.
Yeah, thanks, Eamon. And I think that's really helpful advice. It's kind of like just getting any kind of actual work experience like that as well. Like it gives you that exposure to the world of work, so that transition going into an apprenticeship can hopefully be a little bit easier. But no, that's brilliant. Has there been any support available to you, like as an apprentice or as a young carer during your apprenticeship? Like with your online learning, are you kind of left to do it, or do you have tutors that help you? Things like that.
I think it's more like individual, like college and like university would be more down to yourself and your own accord. But there's also like monthly online classes of Multiverse, and within this class, then afterwards, then you got one-to-one catch-ups an hour every month with your coach, and it's quite, and there's an educational platform called Applied. It's quite good, quite, and it's got all the information they needed for you to succeed.
Fab. Yeah, because I think lots of people watching this would have had experience of online learning through COVID, and perhaps might have been kind of left to their own devices to kind of struggle through perhaps. So, but it sounds like there is support available as part of your course, and you can ask questions and things, which is great. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Eamon. Gabby, I don't know if you have any other questions, or we haven't had anything in the chat yet, but there's still time. But just thank you both, and Eamon, so much for your time this evening. It's been really, really helpful to kind of get insight into the world of apprenticeships, and also hear it from us, and to think about it as a perspective as a young carer as well. It's been really, really helpful.
Can I just ask one question that we've got up on here? Eamon, it's about sort of balancing your caring role and your workload at the same time.
Yeah, so within my caring role, I care for my dad, and whenever I get the opportunity, then if he ever needs anything, then I'm always visiting him because he lives quite close to me. And essentially what my flexibility in terms of working for an employer in different universities, like it works for you whether you having to work around the university schedule and timetable, especially with the flexibility of working from home. It makes me more accessible and gives me more flexibility. As I think what I learned is with the transition to work is that as long as you do the work, you don't have to be working every second of the day. As long as you've done the work, then you can manage yourself. It's not like school where you have to always do stuff. I think it's more delegation, more ownership, and more, I think the style management at work is really like doing it yourself and just quite laid back, but everything has to be done.
So the balance is actually working to your favor, and it works well, and you've obviously learned a lot through the process as well by doing it.
Yeah, I think it's learned a lot in the sector. Actually opened my eyes to the world, so I can actually better apply it to myself and my family when I care for my dad.
I've got a question that's just popped up here. I think it's more for you, Annette. If you know of any other options within the apprenticeships that are within the healthcare sector, that you may know of.
So there are some niches, like people who do the foot thing. I can't remember what they're called. Yeah.
I can't even say.
Yeah, so that you can actually do through an apprenticeship. Also, like ambulance response, I can't remember the technical name. You can also do that. So there are things, dentist, dental nurse as well. Yeah, there are loads of different things. I think the NHS also have like a list somewhere.
Would they be listed on the NHS websites or the Dovecot websites, or both?
Both.
For both.
Yeah. So okay. So with the apprenticeships that are with the NHS trusts, they are what you would more so find being advertised elsewhere, being advertised on the Gov website. But the NHS apprenticeships are a lot more internal. I don't know how much it's changing now, but for a while with the NHS apprenticeships, not the trust, just the NHS, they it tends to be internal, where they do really good apprenticeships, but they offer them to people who are already working within NHS. So one of the ways that you can much easily access the NHS apprenticeships is to get a job within the NHS, and then you'll be able to access them. So yeah, physician, I'm just looking at some of them now. You could, oh yeah, pharmacist. You can do a pharmacist degree apprenticeship. Health practitioner, public health practitioner. I've mentioned midwifery. There's healthcare science as well you could do. So things around medical engineering, dental nurse, dental technician. Yeah, there's loads of stuff. I'll put just this in the chat.
And are they like different levels? Like, do they have to start from level 3 or, well, yeah, I guess you might have to start from level 3.
Yeah, so
Minimum.
they tend to start from level 3 with the NHS or healthcare opportunities, but then there are some outside of NHS, like particularly like with care roles, and I think dental nurse is level 3. So care roles, and also like optician and pharmacist assistants, you can do those at level 2 at intermediate, but then the majority would be 3 and upwards.
Thank you.
Thanks, that's really helpful. Oh, and thank you for that link as well. We'll make sure that we'll share that as more widely as well afterwards. I'll just put it in there as well. Thank you. That's really, really helpful. And I guess it's like going back to what you were saying earlier, Annette, as well, like even within healthcare, you'll have the finance departments, the HR departments, the marketing. So even if you've got like an interest in healthcare, but you're not necessarily, don't want to necessarily be a paramedic or a doctor or one of those other awesome jobs that you mentioned, there's lots of other healthcare related apprenticeships in there as well.
Yeah, definitely. Like even like working within HR in healthcare is really great. If you're someone who is passionate about making the healthcare industry work better for people, you can actually go into HR and you can help to shape the curriculum. You can help to shape what courses are available to people who work in healthcare, what courses they have to do to qualify, adding, even if you're someone who's passionate about, I know some people are passionate about diversity within healthcare, and how lack of diversity within healthcare affects people from minoritized backgrounds, and going into HR, for example, within the healthcare sector is a really great way to kind of help to tackle that.
That's it, trying to, if you're on the inside, you can shape it. Yeah. Awesome. We've had another question. What about teaching in secondary? What qualification would we need?
So with teaching, you can do a teaching assistant, or you can start with a teaching assistant apprenticeship. At the moment, I know that they're working on it. I don't know that they're quite there yet, where you can actually just do a teaching degree apprenticeship. So obviously you need to do the PGCE and all that stuff. But yeah, you can do start with a teaching assistant apprenticeship. That's the one thing you can do within teaching through apprenticeships. What qualifications you would need varies. Some, and this is the case with all apprenticeships, there are some employers or some training providers or colleges or universities that have harsher or more strict requirements than others. So I couldn't say this specifically, but what you can do is, go onto those websites, and I'll send the slides over as well so that you can share them. Go onto those websites, and even if you're not applying yet, or even if you're far from ready to apply, have a look at those vacancies, have a look at what the requirements are. And if you see one that's, you don't quite meet the requirements, you can still put yourself forward to apply. Like Eamon said, they're always looking at the full person and the story and what you bring as a whole, and not just your grades. And also have a look at who else is offering this type of apprenticeship, and what are the different requirements out there.
There's also those certain programs that they probably are very similar to apprenticeships when you think about it, the skip programs, or they might have another name, where you are already employed by the school as a non-teaching member of staff, but they'll put you through their own program and their own learning to get the qualification that you need to go teaching. But as you were talking about it, it's like literally an apprenticeship. but it's just called something completely different. So those options are there as well, depending on the school and their projects and what agreements that they have with other organizations as well. So yeah.
Teach First is a good example of that, isn't it, Gabby? Yeah, and we'll make sure that we include all of that information in the slides and stuff that we send out as well. Fab. Thank you both of you, Annette and Eamon, for joining us this evening, and thank you for those who are listening and watching, and for your questions. Really appreciate it. If you do have any other questions, then please feel free to get in touch with us, either by email or on our website. We have the details here. We're always happy to answer your questions, and if you'd like more events like this as well, please do let us know, because we'd be happily put some more on for you. But for now, thank you all so much for your time this evening. Thank you for the useful information and perspectives you've shared, and yeah, we look forward to seeing you all soon in the future. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.